안녕하세요. 카플라 TV 시청자 여러분, 제임스입니다. 오랜만에 저희가 이 스튜디오에 나와서 이제 이런 팟캐스트 식으로 이제 자리를 마련하게 됐는데요. 저희 LA 한인회에서 앞으로 2주마다 저희 그 한인타운에 대한 뭐 치안 그리고 퍼블릭 세이프티에 대해서 이제 이야기를 나누고자 하는데, 이제 치안을 얘기했을 때는 우리 이제 law enforcement 경찰 사람들이 이제 빠질 수가 없죠, 그 대화에서. 그래서 앞으로 저희가 2주마다 LAPD 올림픽 디비전, 저희 한인타운을 관할하는 저기 벌먼하고 올림픽에 있는 그 경찰서에 계신 뭐 경찰들이랑 대화를 나누고자 합니다. 오늘 이제 첫 에피소드라서 올림픽 경찰서를 총괄하는 소장님 캡틴 에런 폰세 소장님을 이제 모셨는데, 이분과 오늘 이제 우리 그 경찰서에 대해서 좀 배우고, 우리 LAPD의 뭐 관할 지역이 어딘지, 우리 또 올림픽 경찰서 관할 지역이 어딘지 이런 거를 이제 슬슬 알아보는 시간을 갖겠습니다. 제일 먼저 캡틴 에런 폰세 인사드리겠습니다. Hello, Captain.
Hi, how are you?
Very well. First of all, welcome to KAFLA TV's studio here.
Thank you.
On Olympic and Western. We're very excited to have you here. I think KAFLA has been coordinating and partnering with not only the Olympic division but I think that's all made possible through your partnership personally at Olympic division. So we're super excited to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I think Korean Americans who watch Korean media have seen you on TV. Like, oh, that guy, and I'm sure the viewers are probably thinking, like, that guy looks really familiar. And they can obviously identify you as a police officer. But please tell our viewers, by looking at that camera, who you are, and when did you come to the LAPD? Why did you join? And then when did you come to Olympic Division?
Well, outstanding. Thank you, James. And I really want to thank you and KAFLA and our larger community for interacting with me as a commanding officer here at Olympic and creating these opportunities where we have a voice, the police department has a voice. This is what I'd really call partnership policing. And the goal, the number one goal, as in my vision, I think the police department's vision is community safety and keeping our community and our residents safe. We are challenged here in this part of the city is that we are so densely populated, and we have in the small area of 6.2 square miles that we call Olympic Division, we have about 200,000 people. And if all of our viewers on this, if you're out and about walking, I see you, you know how much building is going on in Koreatown.
A lot of construction development
since the pandemic. So a little bit about me. My name is Aaron. I grew up in a little tiny southern town in southern Oregon, out in the country. I grew up, I'll share with you that there were times when I was a young boy where we didn't have running water, we didn't have electricity. Some people would be maybe interested to know we had one of the properties we lived on, we had an outhouse.
Wow.
So we either carried our water sometimes from a local creek. It was a big deal when we got a pump and we could actually pump it up, but you had to walk down to the creek and start the pump and fill up the containers up at the house. And in fact, on that piece of property, they had to put in 6 power poles. So we had electricity. And when we got electricity, that was a big deal. I didn't grow up in that piece of property my whole life, but that was while I was in second, third, into 4th grade, I lived on that property. So
Korean Americans are very familiar with outhouses, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So went to the University of Arizona in Tucson, Arizona. That's where the university is, Arizona. I ended up moving to Tucson when I was a junior in high school with my father, and graduated from high school in Tucson, Arizona. Went on to Northern Arizona University first, which is up in Flagstaff, and then transferred to the University of Arizona in Tucson. Graduated from there. Got interested. I was a political science major and journalism and communication major, and I got interested in law enforcement during my political science studies, and applied for the Los Angeles Police Department. During that time, the police department was hiring lots and lots of personnel. The Clinton crime bill had come in, about 100,000 law enforcement officers were hired all over the country at that point in the early 90s. So it took about a year, a little over a year, to get hired by the police department, very competitive. So I was in class 994. So that's how our class is, the month and the year of the class. At that time, the academy was 7 years. And I now, 30 years later, am still here as the commanding, here at LAPD, the commanding officer of Olympic Division. I've worked all over the city. I've started working in 77th and Newton Division. I was a supervisor in Southwest Division. That's the area that encompasses USC, the Crenshaw Mall, Martin Luther King Boulevard, and Baldwin Hills. Just for reference, I have worked in the Valley. I became a detective CO in Pacific Division. That would include Venice and the beach line and Dockweiler Beach, and that area encompasses the airport. Had an opportunity then to be promoted in 2017 to a captain. Worked again back in North Hollywood Division. That's where North Hollywood Division is where Universal Studios is. It encompasses that, Forest Lawn. Really, for some of our viewers that have been here, I was there at the very end of the Britney Spears meltdown, the growth of Hannah Montana and Miley Cyrus. Michael Jackson, we had Michael Jackson's funeral and then his kids, and really the rise of TMZ during that time. So TMZ would call us on a regular basis, and they knew things that I didn't know sometimes. So that was encompassed North Hollywood, moved on to Foothill Division, which is up off the 210 freeway, very large division, a lot of rural areas still in that division, and very unique part of the city. And then went to our community engagement downtown, South Traffic, that's out of Crenshaw Mall, so oversaw our South Traffic division. Those are the motor officers you see, and our collision investigators that go out and have investigate collision investigations. And then at the end of 2021, end of 2021, I was assigned here at Olympic Division, and we're closing in on 3 years. Here at Olympic Division, and I look back. Sometimes we press forward so much, and I look back at all we've accomplished, all the relationships I've built, all the community members that I've met, and that we are still working hard, and the officers are working hard to make this part of our city, Koreatown, and the larger Olympic Division, the safest division it could be, and being responsive to our community members.
Sure. Going on 3 years now. So I remember, I think the first week that you had just been transferred to Olympic and saying hi to you, I think it was Korean American Day, and we invited you to our flag raising ceremony, and that was the first time we met. I can't believe it's already been 3 years.
Yes.
How long has Olympic Division been open now as a station?
So dedicated in 2008. I think the formal opening was 2009. We just had our 15-year anniversary. It was widely publicized, and we had some tours of the station, and it was in the paper, I remember. We've been here for 15 years, and I would say my experience has been, since I've been here, I remember when Olympic Division, and there was this new division in LAPD,
new baby.
and it was, any new division, it's highly regarded, but Olympic Division, there was something very special about Olympic Division opening right here west of downtown, and a small division, and to be here and to see the camaraderie of the officers and the engagement of our citizens, it's a special place to work.
Yeah. And I think Korean, not even just the Korean community, but the Koreatown community at large is very. I think they were ecstatic when we found out that Koreatown was, pretty much getting our own station, because we were being patrolled by Wilshire Division and a little bit of Rampart to the east, a little bit of Hollywood to the north.
Exactly.
But police stations, every police station is very, very busy. And you mentioned, saturation earlier, and how densely saturated we are here in Koreatown. And so, I think at the time we were coming out of the riots, and 2008 is, a significant amount of years after the riots. But I think there was a lot of advocacy during that time for us to be to get some representation. And I think most viewers would agree that things have been going very well.
And I would say, James, in at the 30th anniversary of the riots, I attended a forum, a discussion that was here in Koreatown. Many people spoke at that, and the history of what was going on globally. Not only were the riots here, but there was a significant global economic turmoil. South Korea had turmoil in their economic.
IMF.
And it was very educational, but also is very enlightening about how important, I think, I don't know if gesture is the right word, but how important it was for this part of the city that there was a commitment to build a police station here. And I can say from myself that the community I interact with, the Korean community, but the larger community that is Olympic, has really adopted Olympic Division as their police station, their police, that keeps Koreatown safe, that keeps Olympic Division safe. And that's reciprocal relationship, which I'm very proud of, from the officers to the community.
Yeah. I think the community really appreciates that we have a police station that we can go to that's accessible. I think that's very important. There are folks with limited English proficiency levels that sometimes might feel that. And this is not just the police department, but other government offices, such as the county or public works or whatever. I feel like they think that it's kind of at a distance, it's not accessible, right? So I think since you've been here for the last 3 years, and everywhere I go, I sing praises about you, and I tell them this is what community policing is supposed to look like. And so a lot of folks contact us and say, is there anything that we can do to help? Right. Instead of, the LAPD, the LAPD is always going to be criticized. And that's, I think, just aside from LAPD, any government entity, no matter how well you do or how badly you do, you're going to be open to criticism and people are going to criticize. But there are people in our community who think, if there are shortcomings of any government entity, maybe we can go out and help. Right. So there's a lot of folks that come in and say, what can we do to help? Right. So are there any volunteer opportunities? I know KAFLA is currently working with Olympic to offer translation and interpretation services. But could you kind of tell our viewers what kind of opportunity are out there to volunteer? What kind of community-based programming is currently going on at Olympic? Because I know you guys have a cadet program that some people might not know about. Like I mentioned earlier, the Korean language interpretation program. What are some community programs that people can kind of participate in?
Yeah, well, excellent question. So let's start with the kids. So we have our junior cadets that are 8 years to 12 years old that get introduced to the police department. And they have meetings. It's a safe place to come and kind of learn about the police department. We have our other cadets that join from 13 to 18 years old through their high school years. Some of our cadets stay entirely through that. This is a great opportunity to get our youth involved with the police department. And I think in some aspects bridge that gap between our youth and parents, particularly maybe parents that have a different view of the police department. In this community, it could be first-generation immigrants to the police department or any of our communities where maybe they came from a country that there wasn't trust with the police. And so it's an opportunity to build trust not only with our youth and help our youth and guide and mentor our youth, but also build that bridge to our parents. Since we mentioned the riots, one of the programs that came out of the riots after the Christopher Commission recommendations was the Community Police Advisory Board. I would really like to see a larger representation of our entire community in that board. The purpose of that board is so the captains and thus the department have direct interface with community members on a monthly basis to discuss community issues that are impacting the various communities. So even here at Olympic, I said we're 6.2 square miles, but we have lots of communities here. We have the Korean community, we have the Latino Byzantine corridor. You know, we have the El Salvadorian community, and then we have the Bangladesh community, and we have a mixture of all kinds of things and everywhere in between. Those are just some of the things that come to mind right now. So a larger representation, because individuals make up different pockets or different areas of what we call Olympic, and to get that direct feedback. So that's CPAP. We have, as you said, you and I work together, and we have a robust volunteer program. We are open to meeting with anybody and bringing them on board for volunteerism, whether it's calling people back for simple crime reports, letting them know we have your crime report. Do you have any follow-up? So one of the complaints we have is that feedback. I don't know if the police have my report. So we have different classifications of crime reports. Many times when or per our policy, when a crime report has no follow-up, there is really nothing left to investigate. But I still think our public would like to know that that's received and somebody read it.
Right.
Even if and occasionally,
Right.
this is where volunteerism can come important. Occasionally, I talked to my neighbor, and the neighbor took a great picture of a license plate or an individual or the Ring camera or have some different. That happened to my neighbor down the street, and they have really good surveillance cameras. So that's that community-based policing, our community then giving us that information. So that's it. So we have several volunteers. I really am in need of volunteers that might like to come once a month and help me do landscape in the front of the station or in the back. We don't have a landscape contract. And so even that, volunteers coming down, and we had a big cleanup day with the officers a while ago, and really took care of the inside. We need to take care of the outside, or just picking up the trash, and it just is on Vermont, as the community is well aware. Sometimes I come, so where did all of this trash come from over the weekend? But that is volunteerism, and that gives an opportunity to work with myself or some of our other officers that would be there to help. We have that. We have the Olympic Boosters Association. That's a way to engage with our community and our business community. We have the golf tournament coming up. That'll be a huge success on November 1st. And the OBA primarily raises funds to support officer events, but also equipment. And more importantly, and most importantly, they have been huge supporters of our youth, that cadet program I mentioned. And providing opportunities for our youth that they may not normally come in contact with, whether it's taking them to a university or just last week taking them to Catalina Island for the day. How neat. And OBA's generosity paid for that.
Can 40-year-olds join the cadet program?
Would be a chaperone. Okay. So a volunteer chaperone with our cadet program, right? So or we have been able to take them to Disneyland. And these are our, some of our kids from here have, that wouldn't even have crossed their mind, or having a beach day. And we're only like 13 miles from the beach, right? So that's just not something sometimes our kids do. For me and you, for many of us, that is, we can go to the beach whenever we want. Whenever I want, I could go to the beach. I don't, but I could.
Right.
So there is plenty of volunteer opportunities available at Olympic. And then we have our community relations office that we coordinate that through. And then there's the volunteer coordinator downtown. Now, you and I, coming out of a meeting, actually, I think in 2023, and starting to discuss what individuals could do to help, we started talking about building volunteer program and specifically breaking down barriers. And you mentioned it earlier. So one of the barriers, I think, when we talk about building trust in communities, but one of the first barriers that many times we have to overcome if we trust or don't trust the police, or building trust, is language.
Right.
And it came to my attention pretty quickly that this was one of the major breakdown of our communication and our service to our communities. One of the LAPD's core values, service to our communities, was actually was a language barrier. It wasn't that the officers didn't show up. It wasn't that the officers didn't want to help. But then conversely, there's the frustration. Right. I can't communicate with the officers. And yes, we have a language bank, but on scene right now, I can't communicate, or maybe we have a delay in service because of pressing issues, and then there's frustration. So you and I worked, and we have our language interpreters that are now working at the front desk as volunteers. And I just left there and said hi to one of our volunteers that's working the front desk, but I've also talked to many of the officers and our watch commanders. Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Has that been, so if we talk about service, has that been value added to our organization, a value added to and for our community? The answer is a resounding yes. And so we're breaking down barriers. We're having somebody, and something you said, I think you said, because you come and volunteer at our front desk, is we used to have Officer Lee there. He was Korean American. So there is something to be said about a familiar face.
Yes.
There's also something to be said, wow, somebody's at the front desk and they're not in uniform.
Right.
Because this uniform, let's look through the community's eyes. This uniform
can be intimidating.
And it carries it could carry bias in the eyes of who's seeing this.
Right.
They don't know who Aaron is or who our officers are at Thomas is at the front desk, but this uniform represents something.
Right.
And so does that create a barrier? But now I have somebody working the front desk that not only looks like me and speaks my language, but they're not in uniform.
Right.
And I think many things that people come into the police station for are questions or concerns or non-police matters that another citizen, without really knowing much about the police department and inner workings of the police department, can handle very easily. No. It's not about reporting a crime. It may be about, can I get my license renewed here? People come to the police for information, and you've worked there, so you know the gamut. So what a positive program. So we would be looking for volunteers to come and continue that. And even if they wanted, there's opportunities up in detectives are calling back individuals for detective, even to say, hey, I'm a volunteer at the police, and this would be in Korea. I'm a volunteer. I'm calling on behalf of Detective so-and-so. And is there any additional information you might have about the crime you reported?
Sure.
What did we do? We first called you back from the police department.
Right.
We told you, in effect, that we have your police report, and we've read it. And is there anything else that might aid us?
Sure.
Or have you learned anything else in there that we need to follow up on? And if the answer is no, that's fine, but we've accomplished something in that. Sometimes the answer is going to be yes, and we really accomplished something, because that may be the piece of information we need to apprehend a perpetrator of a crime against our citizens.
Yeah, we're going on 4 months now. We just completed our 4th month yesterday, and going back to what you were saying about familiar faces, people just come in and, sometimes people need to file a report because something bad has happened to them or something's bad has happened to a family member. But sometimes they come in with questions that are completely unrelated to law enforcement and to LAPD. And luckily, some of us actually work at a nonprofit that offers direct services. So, we've made that bridge where we can say, hey, that's not something that they specialize in here, but if you come to our organization, then we can help you out. And we've serviced those community members outside of the police station lobby. So that's, always been our mission as folks that work in nonprofit, is to, guide folks, especially those that are not English proficient. As soon as they walk into the lobby, they see somebody that looks like them, that speaks their language. That in itself, there's already a sigh of relief, and we could see that on their faces. And I think they've, given that message to some folks at LAPD, and I'm glad that that's kind of gone up to you as the command staff to know that, especially at KAFLA, we're here to do this program for the long haul. It's not easy. It's not easy getting community members who are strictly volunteer basis to come out daily and fill 2 shifts a day, because we're out there 6 days a week now, including Saturdays. And people come and they lose interest and they leave, and that's why we're constantly recruiting. And we want to do this for as long as we can. Yeah. So, I know this is our first episode, and today's interview is a little bit longer than it normally will be.
Okay.
But we wanted to get to know you. We wanted to learn a little bit more about not only the department, but more specifically Olympic Division, because the community needs to support our Olympic division and our local law enforcement, to be completely honest. I know there are people out there who are not as supportive, who have their criticisms. However, I believe the Korean community at large wants to support the police and really believes in the work that is being done. And if that can be done in conjunction with the community's input, I think that would be even more successful. And I think we're achieving that, as we speak. I mean, just by being here and having this conversation. Yeah. So, moving forward, what I'm trying to achieve with this podcast is to allow and enable the police department to communicate directly with the people that live here in this community. There are bad things that happen all over the city. I mean, let's be honest. Crime, whether it's up or down, statistics wise, I don't think it's important. I think people who live in this community have specific concern about specific things that happen in their community, and they count largely on law enforcement, which is LAPD in this case, to protect us, right? Now, the justice system involves a lot more than just the police department, right? There's a lot of different moving parts. We have the city attorney's office, the district attorney's office. This has to come full circle for it to work. And until we get there, until no more crime exists in the world, we will constantly have to maintain this relationship, and I think that's really important. So moving forward, we would like to invite additional officers from Olympic Division, talk about certain situations and issues that are going on within this community specifically, and possibly teach or educate community members on how we can take more steps to protect themselves, such as the example you had with the slow officers coming out to a business, talking to that business owner and saying, hey, you just don't have enough lighting in this place. I mean, you're just open to somebody breaking in, stealing something from your register, even though there's no money in it, all the property damage that's going to be incurred when they break your door down, rip your cash register out of your, from behind your counter, all for what? For nothing, because there was no money in there, right? So I think a lot of folks, need that additional education. I think they would appreciate it. So I kind of wanted this space to be a forum for that. And I really thank you for agreeing to doing this, because, sometimes it's not easy, but I just wanted to thank you again.
You're welcome.
So I don't know who we're going to have on next. We're going to, the captain and I are going to have to talk about it, but we have several Korean speaking officers at Olympic Division. Not only in detectives, but in the senior lead office. Harry Cho is kind of Harry Cho is a senior lead officer in Korea. He's kind of the Korean that's always on TV. He's kind of a celebrity for us. We also have a reserve officer who's also a board member here at KAFLA in Ben Pak.
Yep.
I really want this space to be something where the officers can address the community directly, and then we can get feedback from those officers about how community members can better protect themselves, and so on and so forth.
So to that, I think we're coming to a close here, but to our community, a couple things that I think we all have to do, including myself when I'm out and about, and I failed to mention, I have 4 kids, so I watch my kids, and especially this new generation, but we really are caught up in our phones.
Yeah.
And I see people, if any of you walk in the mornings or drive your cars, watch people on the sidewalk of how involved in their phones they are, and not really paying attention and being aware of what's happening around them. Mm-hmm. And I think in many in some cases, an awareness of what is occurring allows us to maybe make that doesn't look right up in front of me.
No.
Maybe I'll step into the business for a few minutes and let that person pass. But when I'm on my phone, I may not realize that, right? Or well, those people are really looking at me, and wow, I have my nice bag with me and my phone out. Those are the small things, being aware. The other thing I like to ask of our community is, especially as we head into the holiday season, I think we'll touch on this, is when you go shopping, that awareness, but put when you go shopping in your trunk, especially if you're not going to carry it right into your house. Leaving them on your car seat. It's maybe convenient. And then finally...
You're talking about vehicle break-ins.
Vehicle
right?
break-ins.
Okay.
And next is probably, besides our family, our friends, and our kids, our most really sacred area and space is our home. Whether you live in an apartment or a home, that is your space. It's convenient to not lock the door. It's fast to go down and check the mail. It's not convenient when you come back and somebody has burglarized your home in just that short. How many times have you maybe gone down and touched bases with a neighbor or something? Now all of a sudden, a half hour later, you come home and your door's wide open.
Yeah.
So locking the windows and locking the doors can save you a lot of heartache. So call that hardening the target. As we talked about earlier, changing what we can do with our businesses, we can take a look and we might ask that they consider changing their environment. This would include, how do we change our environment? Maybe we cut back the trees. We put in motion sensor lights. Many companies are now making, I'll just use Ring camera, for example, but there's many brands out there where that can be monitored. Those systems are now coming with motion lights. So those are deterrents. And I think individuals know that now because they're very 4H.
4K?
4K.
Okay.
So
maybe 4H.
We 4K. So when we get fantastic pictures, we solved the case not so long ago, and this is a community looking out for the community helping community. Individuals saw what they thought was a burglary, wasn't right there, and as the car drove by, things didn't look right. Took a picture. Perfect picture of the license plate. We were able to follow up with that and enter those people into the criminal justice system, hopefully recover property on behalf of our victims. But that's community. That's the community's part.
Yeah.
Right. And the community part, back to this volunteerism, that we don't have enough personnel to do it all ourselves.
Yeah.
We really need the public's interface with us to solve many of these crimes. Goes back to that building that trust and that people feel comfortable enough to bring in information forward to us. I'll close by saying this. You said something about the criticism. Sometimes criticism is, we need to have a critical eye on ourselves, right? We need to take a look. Did we serve the public the best we could? Can we get better? One of our other core values is continuous improvement. That's how you become better. We fell short in some of these areas, but we can get better. If we don't know where we fell short, we don't know sometimes how to improve because we think everything is moving along fine, and maybe it's not, and maybe there's some adjustments, or we need to make some reflections in how we're serving our community or how we're working with our community. So those are opportunities not to be necessarily shied away from.
Yeah, I think as long as whoever is in a position of power is willing to be receptive of that criticism, I think we can make some progress. It's when people say, "Oh no, you're criticizing me, but we've done nothing wrong," and I think that's when the problems start occurring and the mistrust starts to develop. But I think our relationship between the Korean community and Olympic Division is a prime example of something that's going well, right?
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to obviously continuing to work with you and trying to bring the community members out to volunteer and to participate in the language interpretation process program. And I know there's other things that we're talking about as well, which in due time will happen. Right now, we are in it for the long haul for this interpretations program. It's going very, very well.
Yes.
I believe reporting by Korean community members has skyrocketed because of that familiarity with familiar faces and the language barrier just somewhat being reduced. So I'm looking forward to that. Captain, thank you so much for taking the time. I'm going to explain to my viewers kind of moving forward. I actually already explained that we want this to be a platform for not only communication between our community and the Olympic Division, but for the Olympic Division folks to come out and really educate the community members. And I promise the viewers that the interviews will not be this long next time. We're gonna fly right through it, but today I really wanted to for everybody watching to meet the commanding officers. I can't even talk anymore, so we're gonna